Good morning, crew. So, as many of you have seen lately, I've recently kind of become exposed to the cinematic industries over in India, and there's a lot of good stuff that I've been discovering. However, there's kind of this general lack of knowledge, and there's kind of this general lack of knowledge that I feel like I have toward the industry. Granted that a lot of previous exposure has been to obviously Hollywood and other countries' kind of cinematic industries. But I don't have a lot of experience with kind of the history of Indian cinema and kind of the breakdown. As I've learned, there's a lot of different film industries over there. So what I kind of want to do right now is have kind of a mini discussion about there's certain things that I obviously can learn off the good old internets. Here, let me Google that for you. And then I have kind of, on top of that, I have additional questions that I would actually like to ask you guys. A lot of the subscribers to this channel obviously have a deep investment in the Indian cinematic community. So I figure who better to ask than you guys. So right off the bat, I mean, India, and this I actually did know, India, as I've learned, India actually produces the most films annually of any country, and that includes Hollywood, that includes Nigeria. Nigeria is pretty big, which is pretty impressive, you know. And generally speaking, in India, and again, this is totally up for correction, so pardon any ignorance, this is me kind of just exploring what I think I've learned. So if you guys have any corrections or if there's something I'm missing, you know, feel free to comment and let me know. Or you could just be like, shut the hell up then. From what I kind of gathered, there's many different film industries. There's, 20 plus different languages that produce films annually. Some of the big ones are obviously the Hindi language films, Tamil. If I pronounce any of these wrong too, let me know. Definitely want to make sure I get these right. Tamil language films, Telugu language films, Kannada language films, Bengali language films, and obviously Malayalam. I think I got that right. Language films. Marathi too, I think, was another big one. And a lot of these guys actually have designations, what seems to be Hollywood influenced naming designations. So for instance, Hindi language films are kind of known as Bollywood films. Tamil language films are kind of known as Kollywood with a K. Telugu is Tollywood. I believe Kannada is known as Sandalwood. So this is all stuff you could read, you know what I mean? This is all stuff I've tried to pick up, but there are some questions out of this as well. It also seems like the Hindi language films or Bollywood films, I mean, this is stuff like, these are films like Shive, Bajrani Bhaijaan that I just watched, Sultan, the Three Idiots you guys are recommending, the Kick series, the Doom series, all those are Hindi language films out of Bollywood, correct? And those seem to be kind of the mainstream commercial Indian cinema. Is that a correct statement? Marathi? I feel like either one of those could be correct. Language films. This is one of the oldest film industries in India, if I'm understanding this correctly. It seems like Bollywood kind of pushed in on it, or kind of pushed it to the side a little bit. It kind of ate it up, so to speak. But it's had kind of a revival in recent years, so it does still make up a specific, or I should say a pretty large portion of the release number of feature films in India. I'm not familiar with any of the films that have come out of that industry, but from what I've read, that industry kind of generally focuses on plot lines and stuff with more substance, bolder subjects. I don't know. Is that a fair statement, guys? Also, and it's probably, I think, what's recognized as kind of the second largest industry. There's a grouping of languages into what's known as the Southern or South Indian film industry. That's Tamil, that's Telugu, Kannada, and Malayalam, I believe. That all makes up the Southern Indian film industry, right? Which is basically the south and southeastern tip of India, those regions. Bali, for instance, that actually had both, which I have a question on. That was listed both as Tamil and Telugu. From what I've read, they have a big they put a big emphasis. That industry puts a big emphasis on music and song. Is that fair? And this is part of the reason for this video is as I'm saying these things, I'm actually wondering if this stuff is actually true. So definitely leave a comment. Definitely tell me if this is all just bullshit or if a lot of the stuff is pretty accurate. Telugu language films, Magadira, Iga, the reaction video I just did for Iga and Magadira, those were actually Telugu films, if I'm correct. That industry generally focuses on like Indian folklore, fantasy, mythology, kind of, and maybe melodrama, stuff like that. That's their focus, if I'm understanding it correctly. Or is all this just kind of old school information and everything is just much more mishmash now? I think this is what I'm after. I think this is the kind of information that I'm after. But anyway, so that's kind of generally how I've book learned, I should say, the Indian film industry. So I have some kind of specific questions aimed at you guys. Hopefully you guys can answer. And then on top of that, if you have any other information on the individual industries or the Indian industry in general, you guys can kind of lay it on me. Again, this is all in the effort of kind of learning more about Indian cinema. So first question is, from what I've seen, how is the Bengali and Telugu language industries, how are they both listed as Tollywood? I guess I don't understand how they can both be listed as it, unless, I don't know, like West Bengal is kind of on like the eastern side of India, right? It's on the eastern kind of tip, while Telugu is kind of spoken, if I'm correct, Telugu language is spoken in kind of the southeastern region of India. So I'm wondering, there's no real regional differentiation, right? Or there is a regional differentiation between those two. So how are they both listed as Tollywood, or are they, or is that misinformation? That's the first question. Second question I alluded to above, and I'm kind of using Bahubali, the beginning as an example movie. It was made. I understand the concept of making both of those movies, or making the movie for both of the language. So I think Bahubali was made for both Telugu and Tamil. But is it just that it's being made in both languages, or is there some sort of collaboration between the two industries to get the movie made? For instance, Bahubali, that was the production company, I believe it was Arca Media Works, and that is, I believe that's located in the Telugu language cinema region, right? So I'm just wondering why there's the association with the Tamil film industry, or is it just a language? It's just for wider, kind of broader appeal. They're filming it in multiple languages, or is that the case? That's the second question I had. Third question was specifically about the South Indian film industry. Is that actually recognized as an entity, or is the Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, is Kannada or Canada? It can't be Canada. Kannada and Malayalam industries, are they very much within themselves? Do they like to be considered independent, or having their own entity separated from kind of the group of the classification of the South Indian film industry? So I'm just kind of wondering, in the actual culture, when you're living in it, if South Indian film industry, that collective, is an actual thing, a term, and recognized, so to speak. And the last question is actually something I've only recently considered. It's the Hollywood inspired name. So Bollywood for the kind of the Hindi language stuff, Tollywood for whatever the hell that represents, Kollywood with a K, Sandalwood, Mollywood, like all these different kind of Hollywood inspired names. Again, within the kind of the Indian film industry, are they appropriate? Are they appropriate, I should say, and are they referenced as such within kind of their respective regions within India? Or are those industries actually known within themselves as, the Hindi film industry or the Telugu film industry, and they don't really go? Are those kind of external names like the U.S. and other other countries have kind of placed on those regions. So just trying to get an idea of how the different regional film industries kind of designate themselves. Like, how do they label themselves? Do they label themselves by the Hollywood-esque names, or do they label themselves as, we are the Hindi film industry? Kind of curious about that. All right, so those were some basic questions, guys. Those were kind of the intro questions. And the more I watch, the more I absolutely love the stuff that's coming out of a lot of those industries. A lot of them I'm not familiar with yet. I've obviously only been exposed to kind of the big ones, Tamil, Telugu, Hindi, obviously. So I'm kind of excited about maybe exploring some of the other stuff. If what I've read, if what I've interneted is of any, and you guys, again, let me know. If there's any truth in it, then it sounds like kind of the Marathi, that industry kind of would have a lot of movies that I would enjoy as well, because given that it says they focus kind of on the more substantive, deeper, bolder subjects, maybe some taboo subjects even. Anyway, so again, those are the kind of the initial set of questions. If you guys have any of the answers for those questions, or if some of the information that I've gathered kind of on the internet is total BS, like, call me out on it. Let me know. Let me know if it's if the perspectives are totally kind of different within India. I'm really kind of interested to learn more about this. And as I said, there's a lot of you guys are deep into it or heavily invested in the Indian film industry, so there's no better source to ask, I guess. All right, guys, I appreciate you watching the video. I'm hoping we can get some good discussions about this. So please leave a comment, even if it's a small comment, even if it's just something you've experienced or any kind of experience you've had, or any kind of answer. Like, I appreciate anything. Until then, I will see you with the next reaction. Later, dudes.